I don't want to speak for Governor Ducey. He certainly is not very aggressive on this, so I would have my doubts, but I would hope he would. I think it would pass. I don't know about Governor Ducey. I was in the background, though. And a lot of the law enforcement were there that were good friends of mine. I got several calls, said, "Hey, are you going to be to the signing? We're going to sign the bill." I said, "Where's it at?" Because I was not invited. And they told me, so I showed up. And almost everybody on that stage were friends of mine and grateful to be there, including my son, who was a deputy sheriff, was on that, behind her in that background shot that she had on purpose. I was glad to be there. Disappointed, though, that, again, that sometimes you didn't reach out and work with me in a more proactive manner, invite me to those things. Again, my bill, and I pushed it hard, and she knows that. She was reluctant to sign it. I don't know what her story is today, but she waited the very last day to sign it, and she would not be governor today had she not signed that bill. Anyway, I was not on the list to be there for the Arizona delegation, but I was there. I made plane reservations, hotel room, and I had Congressman King call me that evening because he knew I was going to be there. I had told him, and he called me and said, "In the morning, let's go to breakfast, and then we'll walk over to the Supreme Court for the 1070 hearing." And I said, "Okay, I've got somebody in line for me because I wasn't on the list, Congressman." He said, "What do you mean you weren't on the list?" I said, I was not on the list. I'd been promised by the governor's office I'd be on the list, but somehow I was not on the list. So I said, I've got people standing in line for me, and I will go over there in the morning and get in line so that I can get in. And he said, "Hang on a minute." And so he said, "I'll call you back." I said, "Okay." I can't remember how long it was, half hour, maybe a little longer. He called me back and he said, "You're on the list." I said, "Well, Congressman, thank you. How did that happen?" He said, "I called Judge Roberts." I said, "I can only guess he's in his bathrobe this time of night." He said, he answered. He said, "I called Judge Roberts. I told him the story. You're the author. You didn't have a seat, and you're in line." He said, "You're no longer in line. You have a seat. Show up tomorrow morning." And so I did. We did interviews outside, a lot of interviews, said from their comments, "Wow, sounds like it's an easy slam dunk. You're going to win everything." And I said, "Yes, based on the comments, I think you're right. We are." And so I was a little surprised when we didn't win 3 of the sections, even though they weren't the meat and potatoes of the bill. They were still important sections, and I was disappointed that those were not. They barely lost 5-4, where the majority and the important, which is again 2B, in Senate Bill 1070, 11-1051 2B, that was the compelling language in the bill, and it was upheld unanimously. None. The right thing to do. There are consequences sometimes for doing what's right. I was attacked by lots of folks. I was sued by lots of folks. I had a lot of protests, a lot of threats. DPS called me on a regular basis about groups that were making really pretty some outrageous threats. He called me one day. He said, "Russ, I've got to send people over to watch your house. We've got some real credible threats." I said, "Director, I'd rather not. I live in a small neighborhood, a little small house. I said, you can't hide in my neighborhood." So I said, "I prefer you not." I said, "You know what? I'm a big boy, been in law enforcement a long time. I mow my yard with my .40 caliber on my side. I'm okay." I just want to make it clear, I'm not. I have grandchildren that are Hispanic. This is not about race, and I'm disappointed. And it hurts when they talk about that, because it's just simply not true. It never has been true. I care about my country and the rule of law, And if you're here illegally, I love you. I don't dislike you if you're here illegally, but I want the law enforced. I don't appreciate people who break our laws. And the cost to America is huge. And so I don't retreat from what I've done. I would do it again. The bad guys are going to come after me again. My family paid a big price for that, and I feel bad about that they have to endure that. But there's a price for freedom. There's a price to stand up for certain things, and it's disappointing. But it was still inappropriate, wrong, and it was based on complete deceit and lies. Because again, the governor got elected because of 1070. I got recalled because of 1070. The number, that scenario didn't fit. So they used other stuff besides 1070 to go after me. They made up all kinds of stuff. So they're very clever about what they did. But I wouldn't change it. I mean, I'd like to change that part, but I wouldn't change what I did.